Manchester City, a club that for more than a decade has accustomed its supporters to a trajectory marked by triumphs, prominence, and boldness in the transfer market, currently finds itself at a curious crossroads. Pep Guardiola's team is not enjoying a brilliant start to the season, and that alone would be enough to generate a wave of criticism and analysis. But, as always with the citizens, the headlines extend far beyond the pitch. Between rumors of multi-million-pound signings, unexpected departures, and strategic renewals, a plot is unfolding that captures the supporters' imagination and stirs the backstage of European football. The most explosive point of this new chapter is the movement surrounding Bradley Barcola, the young Frenchman currently shining at Paris Saint-Germain. Valued at around $87 million, he is seen by Guardiola as an essential piece to compose an attack capable of switching between Haaland's strength, Foden's technique, and Doku's pace. Barcola's numbers in Paris draw attention. In just over 100 games, he has tallied 27 goals and 31 assists, figures that not only consolidate his importance but also demonstrate his constant evolution under pressure at one of Europe's most media-driven clubs. The choice is no coincidence. Pep has always valued forwards capable of unbalancing games with quick dribbles and sharp reading of play. Luis Enrique, PSG's current manager, has even described Barcola as one of the best dribblers in Europe. For Guardiola, the Frenchman offers a natural fit with the style that has defined City's dominance: attacking mobility, creativity, and the ability to break defensive lines in tightly contested matches. The mere mention of his name already stirs excitement in both Manchester and Paris, as his departure would represent a blow to the Parisians, who now regard him as indispensable. Yet the transfer market maneuvers are not the only narrative under the spotlight. The official list of 25 players registered by City for the Premier League also sparked surprise. Calvin Phillips, despite failing to convince since his arrival, was retained. What really caught the eye, however, was the inclusion of defender Luc Mbete. At 21, soon to turn 22, he has only 3 official appearances for the club, the last being back in March 2022 against Sporting in the Champions League. Since then, his journey has been limited to loans at lower-profile sides, such as Bolton, Huddersfield, and Den Bosch. Mbete's presence carries an important symbolism: confirmation that Guardiola does not shut the door on academy graduates, even in times of uncertainty. This decision can be interpreted as an internal message of trust, while also showing the market that City, despite their huge spending, still value the talent born in Manchester. The squad registered for the Premier League features heavyweight names alongside some daring bets. In goal, City presented 4 options: Donnarumma, newly arrived and already first choice, alongside James Trafford, Stefan Ortega, and Marcus Bettinelli. In defense, there are Stones, Ruben Dias, Nathan Ake, Josko Gvardiol, Ait Nouri, and Mbete himself. The midfield mixes experience and youth, with Rodri, Phillips, Nico Gonzalez, Johnny Rangers, Kovacic, Bernardo Silva, Foden, and Ryan Cherki. The attack includes Bob, Haaland, Marmoush, and Doku, while youngsters such as Savio, Rico Lewis, Abdulkadir Kusanov, and Nico O'Reilly enter the under-21 list. Among the veterans, one name stands out with an uncertain future: Bernardo Silva. Captain of the side this season, the Portuguese midfielder has been central to Guardiola's project since 2017, when he was signed from Monaco for $43 million. Now 31, Bernardo is entering the final year of his contract, and his future remains a mystery. Clubs such as Juventus, Napoli, and Milan have already explored the possibility of signing him, and there are persistent rumors that a reunion with De Bruyne could happen on Italian soil. Bernardo has always made clear his desire to be closer to his family, and for a long time Barcelona was considered a likely destination. However, the Catalan club's financial crisis made any move impossible. Guardiola insists he counts on the Portuguese until the end of the season, but he knows market pressure could change the scenario within months. Italian newspapers are already speaking of a Juventus offensive for 2026. leaving supporters on alert and reinforcing the idea that this may be Bernardo's last dance in Manchester. While some stars contemplate new horizons, City secure their gems for the future. Rico Lewis, only 20 years old, has extended his contract until 2030. A product of the club's academy, the fullback has stood out for his versatility and tactical intelligence, especially when playing as an inverted fullback, moving into midfield during build-up play. This trait, once a trademark of Kyle Walker, now finds a natural successor. For Lewis himself, the renewal represents far more than a contract. In his words, wearing the City shirt is a source of pride for him and his family. Sporting director Hugo Viana highlighted that Lewis embodies the club's values and that his early maturity will be vital for the years ahead. With this, Guardiola feels relieved. Instead of seeking an expensive replacement for Walker on the market, he can prepare Lewis as the natural heir to the position. But the backdrop to all this movement remains the performances on the pitch. Following unexpected defeats to Tottenham and Brighton, City sit only 13th in the Premier League table. For a club used to fighting at the top, this start is a shock. The derby against Manchester United therefore emerges as a crucial moment. Guardiola demands an immediate response, and Donnarumma's debut in a derby of this magnitude adds even more anticipation. The Italian goalkeeper, in his first statements, expressed his pride at working with Pep and his belief that he can develop significantly in Manchester. This combination of elements, multi-million-pound reinforcements on the radar, little-tested youngsters being trusted, strategic renewals and veterans with uncertain futures, paints the picture of a club in transition, yet one that refuses to abandon its ambition. City want to prove that, even amid setbacks, they retain the same hunger for victory that turned them into a global powerhouse. Guardiola, more than ever, emerges as the conductor of this process. Every decision he makes resonates in multiple directions: in the transfer market, within the squad, and even in the relationship with supporters. The arrival of Barcola, if confirmed, would be the definitive statement that City continue to reinvent themselves without ever abandoning the idea of staying one step ahead. And in this chessboard that is modern football, Pep knows that every move must be calculated, for this is how the longevity of a dynasty is built. The derby against Manchester United approaches as a watershed moment for Manchester City. The pressure is evident. The fans, accustomed to an endless run of triumphs, will not accept seeing the team stuck at the lower end of the table. For many, this is an opportunity for rebirth. A convincing victory against their greatest local rival could restore confidence and re-establish the winning mentality. For Guardiola, it is about more than just 3 points. It is a test of character, resilience, and the team's ability to respond when all eyes are filled with doubt. The presence of Donnarumma in goal adds a special layer to this classic. The Italian, surrounded by expectation since his arrival, shoulders the mission of succeeding Ederson, who became an idol at the Etihad. Donnarumma arrives with the baggage of being a European champion with Italy, but also with the need to prove he can be decisive in a competition as intense as the Premier League. In recent interviews, he has shown awareness of the responsibility, highlighting that working with Guardiola can raise his game to a new level. This debut in the derby, therefore, goes far beyond rivalry. It may mark the beginning of a new era. And while the present demands results, the future is being built behind the scenes. The Bernardo Silva case is emblematic. Captain, technical reference, and silent leader, he has become the voice of command on the pitch after the departures of De Bruyne, Walker, and Gundogan. His ability to dictate the rhythm, occupy spaces, and provide solutions in moments of pressure is irreplaceable. However, the closeness of his contract's expiry keeps the fans in suspense. Juventus, with its tradition of attracting big names in the final stages of contracts, emerges as a strong candidate. Napoli, now also targeting the possibility of signing De Bruyne, nurtures the dream of pairing two brilliant minds in midfield. Milan, always on the lookout for prestigious symbols, is also observing. The dilemma is clear. Letting go of Bernardo means losing one of the pillars of Guardiola's project. But keeping him could be costly, especially if the player insists on seeking a new adventure. For City, it is not merely a financial matter, it is a question of identity. Bernardo is more than statistics. He symbolizes the transition between Guardiola's early City and the consolidated machine that dominated Europe. His departure would open a difficult gap to fill, even though names such as Cherki and Nico Gonzalez are being seen as alternatives for the future. Meanwhile, the Barcola chapter continues to boil. Sources close to PSG suggest that the French club does not intend to make negotiations easy. Barcola is regarded as one of the central pieces of Paris's reconstruction project, particularly after the departures of players such as Neymar and Messi. However, City's financial power and Guardiola's persistence could make the difference. The Spanish manager rarely sets his sights on a player without being certain he can lift the team to another level. And in this case, the vision is clear. Barcola could be the perfect complement for an attack that, at times, seems overly dependent on Haaland. At the same time, the board works in parallel to ensure the club does not depend solely on high-profile signings. Rico Lewis's renewal until 2030 is not an isolated gesture. It reflects the strategy of maintaining a homegrown core capable of carrying City's identity even amidst constant changes. Lewis represents a generation that grew up watching the club transform into a global powerhouse and now takes on the responsibility of keeping it at the top. That emotional connection is vital to maintaining fan engagement, something that goes beyond trophies. Luc Mbete, though without the same projection, symbolizes another facet of this process. His inclusion in the Premier League squad may not mean immediate minutes on the pitch, but it represents the idea that every academy player can, at some point, be called upon to contribute. Guardiola has surprised before by throwing youngsters into decisive matches, and history shows that unexpected trust can transform careers. For Mbete, this may be the chance to prove he deserves a place in a squad where competition is fierce. It is important to remember that City has always been a club attentive to the balance between present and future. The pursuit of Barcola, the Bernardo dilemma, Lewis's renewal, and the bet on Mbete are pieces of a larger puzzle. Each decision interacts with another. City does not act in isolation, but as a side preparing a long-term strategy, even amid the season's turbulence. And the season, in turn, demands immediate solutions. Defeats to Tottenham and Brighton were a shock for the fans, but also served as a wake-up call for the squad. Guardiola knows the Premier League does not forgive successive stumbles. The derby against United is just the first step of a marathon in which consistency will be the watchword. The Champions League, a tournament that has already crowned City, also looms on the horizon, and domestic performance needs to be adjusted quickly to ensure international confidence is not shaken. In the dressing room, the atmosphere is one of pressure, but also of unity. Haaland, the absolute top scorer and symbol of the new era, has shown leadership beyond his goals. Foden, already consolidated as one of the club's icons, is taking on more and more responsibility. Doku, with his devastating pace, still seeks consistency, but has already proven to be a weapon capable of changing the course of complicated matches. This blend of talent, youth, and experience is what keeps the fans believing, even in moments of fluctuation. Around the club, the press does not let the situation cool down. Headlines about Barcola, analyses of Bernardo, debates about squad depth, and questions about the unstable start are daily topics. Guardiola, however, maintains his characteristic calm. He knows pressure is part of the package and, in his interviews, always reinforces confidence in the group and the conviction that City will rediscover its rhythm. All of this shows that, at the Etihad, there is no room for stagnation. Each season, the club finds a way to reinvent itself, and it is precisely this constant reinvention that keeps it a global reference. If Barcola does arrive in January, it will be another chapter in this daring story. If Bernardo stays until the end, he will be the symbol of an era that refuses to end in silence. If youngsters like Lewis and Mbete secure their place, they will prove that the future is already being shaped at home. City today faces the challenge of balancing three dimensions: immediate results, market projections, and internal development. It is within this balance that Pep Guardiola built his dynasty, and it is on this that the club relies to remain at the top. Because in Manchester, the goal is not just to win, It is to win while making it clear that the future has already begun. The balance between present and future has never been so challenging for Manchester City. While on the pitch, the team must respond immediately. Behind the scenes, the club moves like a giant, planning every detail of its survival at the top. Modern football allows no rest. A single careless season can mean losing ground, not only in terms of trophies, but also in the minds of global supporters and in the race for emerging talent. Guardiola knows this better than anyone. That is why every move, whether it be the pursuit of Bradley Barcola, the renewal of Rico Lewis, or the dilemma surrounding Bernardo Silva, works as part of a larger mechanism. City does not act at random. There is a strategic logic that runs through the corridors of the Etihad. The club has become a laboratory of reinvention. It is not enough simply to sign players. They must be shaped for specific roles. Systems must be created that can survive changes in personnel, and a philosophy must be maintained that is clear both on and off the pitch. This philosophy, in fact, has already proven to be Guardiola's greatest legacy. Since arriving in Manchester, he has transformed the way the game is played in England. The possession style, the coordinated pressing, the use of inverted fullbacks, the mobility in attack, all of this set a trend. Rival teams began adopting solutions inspired by his ideas. Today, however, the challenge is different. Reinventing in order not to become predictable. Barcola enters this context as a breath of novelty. His ability to improvise, dribble in tight spaces, and provide imbalance could restore to City that sense of unpredictability which was always a hallmark of Guardiola's peak years. Yet the transfer market is not made of wishes alone. PSG's resistance to letting Barcola go promises to be one of the major storylines of the January window. The French side do not want to part with one of their gems, especially after so many recent changes in the squad. City, for its part, holds a powerful card, the promise of a stable, competitive, and winning project. For a young player on the rise, that weighs as much as the financial aspect. The question is whether PSG will be willing to negotiate or whether they will turn this battle into a months-long saga. Meanwhile, Bernardo Silva remains the silent soul of the team. He is not the most media-friendly player, but perhaps he is the most essential. In moments of chaos, it is Bernardo who holds the ball, dictates the tempo, and gives the side the calm that few can provide. His potential departure would not only be a technical loss, but also a symbolic one. It would represent the end of a cycle, the closing of a chapter in the dynasty built alongside Guardiola. That is why his situation keeps supporters and the press in a state of constant expectation. The renewal of Rico Lewis, on the other hand, brings a breath of optimism. He is the portrait of a generation that grew up in the shadow of conquests, but now has the chance to write its own story. Every time he steps onto the pitch, he transmits energy and tactical discipline. For Guardiola, it is like having a versatile piece that can be adapted to different contexts. For the fans, it is confirmation that the youth academy still beats strongly within a club, so often accused of relying only on big checks. Then there is Luke Mbate, who symbolizes hidden hope. Little known, seldom used, but registered as part of the senior squad. It is as if Guardiola were telling the world he underestimates no one, that even the most unlikely player can be important at the right time. This gesture resonates within City's academy, showing the youngsters that the road to the first team may be long, but it is not unreachable. The derby against United in this context becomes a showcase. It is not merely about measuring strength against the historic rival. It is the chance to show the world that, even in a turbulent moment, City remain a giant willing to fight on every front. For Donnarumma, it will be the opening chapter of a story that could redefine his career. For Haaland, it is yet another opportunity to prove that his hunger for goals knows no limits. For Guardiola, it is the moment to reaffirm his authority as a strategist who never loses control. But football is not made of strategy alone. It is also emotion, narrative, symbols that transcend the 90 minutes. By registering youngsters and renewing contracts with homegrown talents, City seeks to send supporters a clear message. This is not a bought team. It is a built one. It is a project that blends international stars with local boys, balancing the strength of millions with the energy of local dream. This combination, however, will only have value if accompanied by results. That is what makes every match an examination. Guardiola has already endured complicated starts to seasons, but always found creative solutions. The question is whether, amid so many squad changes and contractual uncertainties, the group will have the same capacity to respond. The fans know the Premier League is a battlefield without end. A poor start can compromise the entire campaign, but they also know that once City hit their stride, few can stop them. It is this expectation that keeps the flame of hope alive, that the team will soon find their way and turn doubts into yet another chapter of triumph. At heart, this is the essence of Guardiola's Manchester City. It is not only about winning, it is about how to win. It is about the message each victory conveys. It is about creating a style that will remain in memory even after the trophies are put away. City do not play only to gain points, but to leave a legacy. And that legacy, built day by day, continues to be the reason why the club remains at the center of attention, even when results fluctuate. In the end, what is taking shape in Manchester is much larger than a simple football season. It is a constant struggle between past, present, and future, where every decision, from the possible arrival of Barcola to Bernardo's uncertain future, from the gamble on youngsters like Lewis and Mbete to Donnarumma's debut in a derby, carries symbolic weight. Manchester City remain a giant in transformation, always searching for new ways to reinvent themselves without losing their identity. And it is precisely this capacity for transformation that keeps the club at the top, even amid criticism, doubts, and setbacks. Guardiola, his players, and the supporters know the road is never easy, but that is exactly what makes every achievement even more significant. If you have followed this journey up to this point, it is because you too feel this passion and this curiosity about what happens on and off the pitch. So, do not forget, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you do not miss a single detail of the next twists and turns. City promise much more, and we will be here to tell every chapter of this story.